Okay, hello and welcome to your grid on black paper video demonstration. You need your bigger grid that you picked up with the set, your full page printed image. This is of Miss Lynette from last year. She graduated last year. She might be happy to know I'm going to draw her, or maybe not. Anyway, we're going to take off the rest of the blue tape and set it aside. Stick it on the edge of something. Okay. We're going to label this first. I'm just going to flip this over so we can see it. We're going to go, it's going to be 8 by 10. So you're actually going to label a little bit. I'm going to go a little A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and H. Sorry. Okay, so it's 8 across already. Then we're going to come down 10 boxes. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, if your image is horizontal, so let's say it's wider than it is tall, then I would still do the same. I would number it 1 through 10, but I would go 1 through 10, and then A through H. So you're just going to turn the grid so that it's horizontal when you label it. So you always number the long side and letter the short side. However you do it, you just make sure the grid is the same on the paper as it is on your image. Okay, so then my 1 should be at the top of my image. And I'm going to end up cutting off one of the rows. So if you want to like put it in the middle where I want to cut off a little bit at the top and a little bit at the bottom, I could. For her, I think it's more interesting not to cut off her hair. So I'm gonna line up this little corner right here, the top corner of her image or photograph. So I am gonna end up cutting off the bottom part, which really is just some hair in her sleeve, but all the important stuff is still there. All right, then I would just tape it on the edge so that you can still flip it up and down. So I'm gonna go over here because there's not a lot happening over here. Tape it and just flip it over. For one piece, you can still flip it up and down to look for what you need. And just knowing that I'm gonna stop drawing here. And if yours is horizontal, so let's say your image is this way, you're going to cut off a little bit of one of the sides or a little bit here, a little bit there. Okay. So you just want to make sure that your row that is labeled with the letters, you're not drawing anything in there. So this would be A1, this would be B1, C1, etc. Okay, set that aside. And of course, if you have questions, please ask during class. Okay, now for your big sheet of paper, I will say if you mess up, we could not afford to give you a second sheet. So if you mess up, you can use the back side. But remember, one side is not as black as the other. So this is the side that's not as black. And so we're going with the super black side. I'm gonna go more at the top. Okay, so with your clear plastic ruler, oh, and I have that strip of poster board that you got, the long strip that we used for the micrography grid. So if you need a pause, get that out. You'll need your plastic ruler, white pencil. So that's what you need. Pause if you need to stop and get that out. In the Google Classroom is the slide to show you where the measurements are on the ruler. So you can refer to that. Remember, on this ruler, the inch is that first little line. So you're going to have that little bit of a gap. And then the inch marking on the ruler is the big line to the right of the number for all of them. Even when you get down to 10 and 11, it's the big line to the right of the number. All right, so I'm going to line up that line with the edge of my paper. And I'm going to go and make a 1.5 inch grid. So I'm going to go 1.5, 3, 4.5, 6, 7.5, 9, 10.5. I can show you at the bottom. This camera is kind of in the way of this measuring. Maybe if I bend the paper. Okay, there we go. Okay, 10.5. And I'm gonna go over on the edge 12 and then slide your ruler down. Start back at the 0 mark. So we'll go 1.5, which would be 13.5. And then 3, and then 4.5. One of the rows may not be as long as the other row. So you really want to make sure you're not flipping your paper around. I'm just going to slide the ruler down to the bottom. Do that again. So 1.5, 3, 4.5, 6, 7.5, 9, 10.5, 12. Slide my ruler. 1.5, 3, and then 4.5. Okay, so while I have this paper here, I'm going to go ahead and make these lines. So we're going to use the strip of poster board to connect the little inch markings. So I'm going to line it up at the top of my paper. Okay, line it up to where you can kind of see the little mark, like I can see it like right there, right next to it. You want to be able to see it. So it gives you space for the charcoal. Okay. And I'm going to hold my charcoal pencil at the very end, barely holding it, barely touching. And you want the least amount of pressure possible. Like, I'm going to try to get even lighter than that. Not in value, but lighter pressure. Because, as you have learned, white charcoal does not erase very well. So I'm going to go less pressure than that. Like to where, maybe I'm just going to hold it with like my 2 pointer fingers. Okay, that looks a little bit less. I'm still gonna work on it. Like very light pressure. You don't want to grit all over your face. It's part of craftsmanship. And if you have a lot of negative space, then we're gonna have to you're gonna have to do a lot more mark making in the background to cover the grit if it shows. But a lot of us have dark hair, so we really don't want the grit showing. Okay, that I need to lighten up my pressure a little bit more. Okay, so double checking at the top, double checking at the bottom. Okay, double checking that it's all lined up. Barely any pressure. So this does include the border. So this looks big, but 1.5 inches all around. So we're actually like almost chopping off like 3 inches from each side if we take away the border. And your image is going to be 8 by 10. This is going to be 12 by 15. Okay, now I'm going to turn my paper vertically in front of me. And I'm going to do the same 1.5 inches. Line up that first little line with the edge of the paper so my ruler's hanging off a little bit. So this is in the border. That's also why we're not measuring like in the middle, so you don't have these little dots of measurement marks just in the middle. So definitely use your poster board strip, or the edge of the poster board would work. Something straight that's, you know, straight and long. So 1.5, 3, 4.5, 6, 7.5, 9, 10.5, 12. Okay, slide the ruler over, line it up with 0, 1.5. Just one extra little mark. I'm gonna just slide and do the top part. I'm like really bending this paper. One and a half, 3, 4.5, 6, 7.5, 9, 10.5, 12. Slide my ruler over. 1.5. Okay, I'm not going to make you watch me make the lines again, but if your lines are very visible, like I am going to do this before I start drawing in the next video, with the kneaded eraser, before I even start, I would, don't press very hard, but I'm going to go along the line and lift up to where I can still see it. It's barely there. Barely there. So much easier to do before you have a drawing on there. So I am going to make all of those grid lines much lighter and pressure. Sorry, I'm going to get rid of them so you can barely see them. But if you can see it, it's fine. It doesn't have to show up this much. Okay, so I'm going to do all my vertical lines, and then we'll go over labeling in the next video. Yes, we'll go over labeling in the next video. Okay, I'll see you in the next video. Finish all of your grid lines.